It's the end of World War I, and the world is divided. Houses have been destroyed in the conflicts and families have been forced to move. There is a serious need of housing in all of Europe. Something has to be done. As illustrated in this graph, the number of buildings per year in England, represented by the continuous line, France in the dotted line and Germany in the broken line, arose in between the two world wars in order to make up for the lack of dwellings. The new houses were a part of housing programs that began in England in 1919. Many countries followed England, including Austria. Since the beginning of the 1900s, the housing conditions of the working class in Vienna had been poor, not living up to the modern standard of the time. Overcrowding, excessive moisture, and lack of light and air were the most frequent problems.
When the Social Democratic Party of Austria gained control of the municipal administrations in 1918 during the First Republic in Austria, they started a 5-year building program. The head of the Socialist Democratic Party at the time, Otto Bauer, was following the plan made by the architect Peter Behrens about building superblocks with collective facilities. The idea was to build in a way that every building should have as many dwelling units as possible, and the construction should live up to the Social Democrats' guidelines. This period of time became known as the Red Vienna, and it was a project to change society by changing the city. Building these superblock buildings were the method the Social Democrats used to change the city. This mass housing model is also called, in German, ein Hof. The characteristics of ein Hof is defined by closed or semi-closed blocks. They are high in density, built with traditional building methods, and they are also called workers' fortresses.
As part of the socialist housing programs, Karl Marx Hof was built in 1927 and finished in 1930. It was designed by architect Carl Ehn, and it's considered to be one of the longest residential buildings in the world, measuring up to 1,100 meters. It was built on a site where the side arms of the Donau River previously had run. Due to the history of the area, the land was difficult to build on because of the unstable ground. To stabilize the ground, floating pillars had to be set in earth. The building consists of 1,382 apartments spread over 5 floors. The apartments vary in size, but all of them have a minimum of 1 chamber and a kitchen. Electric light was installed in the rooms from the beginning, as well as running water in the kitchen, so that there was no need to fetch water from the corridors. Some of the apartments had balconies, which was out of the ordinary since they were usually reserved for the middle class. When it comes to the bathrooms and toilets, they had to be shared by all of the residents of 1 floor. Today, bathrooms are being installed in the apartments. Taking a look at the outside of the building, you notice the 4 arched pathways that connect the inner courtyard to the street. The arches are distinguished by the balconies and the crowning towers with blue flagpoles on top. What also characterizes them is the red color that can be associated to the Red Vienna. The rest of the facade is painted in a light yellow and shows small windows. The smooth facade and the building's clear structure due to geometric lines make it obvious that this is a modernist building. Although Karl Marx Hof is mostly unembellished, there are a few sculptures. The sculptural figures that can be seen above the arches on the main facade are made by Joseph Riedel. They represent the basics for a healthy communal living in the sense of socialism as personifications of freedom, care, enlightenment, and physical culture. There is also a freestanding bronze sculpture named Sauer by Otto Hafner that is placed in the middle of the park. The land that Karl Marx Hof was built on was 156,000 square meters. Out of this large area, only 18.5% were dedicated to the building. The rest of the site got dedicated to the courtyards. The yards should act as a meeting place and should give the residents a feeling of togetherness and security. In addition to the gardens, the residential complex has multiple different community facilities. They include dental clinic, pharmacy, post office, library, youth home, mother's advice center, laundries, and numerous shops. These conveniences, along with the building being meant to house a large number of people, can be linked to the Unité d'Habitation, a residential housing design principle developed by Le Corbusier in the 1920s. One of the purposes of these buildings was to hold as many people as possible because of the residential needs after the First World War. The other was to make these units self-sufficient when it comes to function, work opportunity, and service. With many of society's tasks being gathered at the same place, Le Corbusier's plan was to use the rest of the lands as parks and gardens. This is similar to how the site of Karl-Marx-Hof was used.
However, Karl-Marx-Hof was not Carl Ehns's first work with the purpose of creating public housing. One of his earlier works was Bebelhof. It was built in 1925 and is a residential building that consists of 301 apartments on 21 different floors. The facade is decorated with many windows, rounded and pointed avant-corps, and extended balconies. Bebelhof is named after August Bebel, leader of the German social democracy. Later, when the Austrian Civil War broke out, Bebelhof also became an important part of history. It was occupied by the Republican Protection Association in February 1934. Many of Carl Ehns's works in Vienna were built under socialism with the purpose of creating housing. With both Bebelhof and Karl-Marx-Hof, that became a continuous idea throughout Ehns's architectural career. There are also some similarities between Karl-Marx-Hof and Bebelhof when it comes to design. Both buildings have avant-corps, but it seems as Carl Ehn made these more extravagant on Karl-Marx-Hof. In other words, the idea of adding avant-corps stayed with Ehn, but became more extreme in his later works. Another feature that is seen on both buildings is square-shaped balconies. These are also different from building to building. On Bebelhof, the balconies extrude from the main building, and on Karl-Marx-Hof they are part of the avant-corps. It also seems like Carl Ehn started to play with different colors on different parts of the facades later in his career. Bebelhof only has one yellow color, while Karl-Marx-Hof is both red and yellow. After Karl-Marx-Hof, Ehn continued to design buildings for public housing projects. One of these buildings was Adelheid Popp-Hof. Adelheid Popp-Hof is also named after a socialist politician, Adelheid Popp. The building is very cubic and almost completely ornamentless. This shows how Ehn's modernist architecture became more radical throughout his career. Unlike Bebelhof and Karl-Marx-Hof, Adelheid Popp-Hof is almost only made out of squares. From the courtyard side of the house you can see a few square avant-corps, but other than that the building is completely flat. It does have windows, but they are placed in a very structured way, in straight lines. You can see inspiration from the architect Otto Wagner in many of Carl Ehns's works. Wagner's later works often had ornaments, but many geometrical forms. This is also seen in Ehns's designs. Ehn was actually an apprentice under Otto Wagner, so it comes as no surprise that he was inspired by him. It was under Wagner that Ehn designed for many public housing projects.
All of these buildings has their linear structure in common. And this is no coincidence. In the book The Problem of the Socialist Cities by Nikolai Milutin, the linear city was introduced. Milutin said that industry residential areas need to be two linear and parallel elements separated by a big yard. This would make a flat structure, getting rid of the center of power. No more country and city, giving a more flat hierarchy. Of course, this idea was illusional. But the Karl-Marx-Hof is a great example of how these socialist ideas were put into practice on a quite large scale.
Karl-Marx-Hof was a very important historical building. It revolutionized the Hofs. Not only is it a building that shows modernistic characteristics, but it also had a political importance with Rev Vienna and the public housing programs that were common in Vienna at the time. It is a constant reminder of the Marxist society during the interwar period in Austria, as it is still used as housing and a reference today.